Welcome everyone, and here we are already at day 36 of Lent, 40 days of change. Please connect with the others if you find this at all helpful or you've missed out some. They'll be really useful, I hope, for you. And we're trying to grow together. We all want to be better Christians. We want to be better people. We want to be more like Christ created us to be. And so I want to encourage you in this time. Easter is just a few days away, and as we think of Christ, let's prepare our hearts and our lives. Let's just get closer to him. This week, well, not the whole week, but for part of the week, just for a few days here, I want us to focus on generosity and giving, and then the last few of this series, we're going to look at another really important subject, something that really ties in with the cross. But today I want us to recognise how blessed we are. One of the things I vividly remember is that a young person, the day that I came to Christ, or the week in fact, it wasn't the week I came to Christ, there was another young person there, just a couple of years older than me, who'd given his life to Christ. And when he was just sharing his story, he said this, which stuck with me all those years. He says, my mother had always told me that we were among the have-nots, but now I realise I'm amongst the haves. And that's a great attitude to have. All but the very poorest in our nation anyway are rich by standards of this world. And that's without talking about the riches of Christ and the spiritual life that he gives us. But just as a people, if you're in this country or in the States or in other parts of Europe, all but the poorest of us, to be honest with you, are amongst the very richest in the world. We have food, shelter, safety, stability. Hey, you might think, what, in this pandemic? But I tell you what, this stability, where we're not having revolutions, where we're not worrying if we're going to be bombed, if there's famine around, this stability around us compared to most of the rest of the world. That's with so many hundreds of millions craving for what we have. No wonder people in their huge numbers are prepared to travel on perilous journeys and risk their lives in treacherous waters and circumstances and conditions to get here, willing to pay anything to try to get to Europe and often to Britain. It's no surprise when you look at it. And Jesus has something to say to us. I want to read you these verses. They come from Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verses 17 to 19. Jesus said this. Well, Jesus has something to say. He says it through his people. Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need. Always being ready to share with others. I noticed that as a nation in Britain, we're going to give less. It's only a very small figure that we give, a fraction of 1% to the world's poor, but I noticed that we're reducing that. I noticed too how Europe, an incredibly rich part of the world, are falling out with each other over vaccines and whether they share it with other people, whether they share it with the world. It's a lot of good talk, but are they just holding on to it? Are we so used to holding on to it? Let me continue to read. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others, not just in the good times, but always. By doing this, they will be storing up treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience true life. It says actually by doing it, we're investing in stuff that's going to build our lives. Jesus talks in Matthew, and this clearly is the background of this. Jesus talks in Matthew and says, don't store up treasure in, down here where it can be eaten away, it can be destroyed. We know banks can fall apart. We know that stuff that we buy begins to disintegrate. Some of it's built in to be obsolete. So here are 3 things from that. Very simple things. Do good. Do good. That's simple, isn't it? Do good. I think we all know the difference between good and bad. Be rich in good deeds. Okay, if we want to be rich in something, let's be rich in good deeds. Let's just do them extravagantly. Extravagantly. And let's be generous and willing to share. So we're not pouring out just from our leftovers, just from our surplus. But being generous means we share what we have. We share what we have got with others, not just because it's left over, but because we're saying, come alongside me. This is my meal. This is what I'm doing. Come and be with me. Jesus' words here, freely you have received, freely give. They echo, or they should echo in our hearts and in our minds and in our lives. They're found in Matthew 10, verse 8. Freely you've received, freely give. That's a principle that runs through this giving, this feeling of generosity. Finally, Augustine of Hippo said a long time ago, nearly a couple of centuries ago, God is always trying to give good things to us, but our hands are too full to receive them. Let's receive what God wants, and let's empty our hands because we're sharing it with those around us. God bless you. Please connect with me tomorrow.